connected to our friends in this, and you don't need to look that far to see. In an instant, it's all rushing by. You risk it all to set them free. Seems like time and again, and time and again, it must be destiny. So you turn to it and stare it down again, and it's time to choose. So stand by my side. Oh, nothing can stop us. Oh, falling you back. So move on, you've got to find the ending.
Hello, everyone. This is Pendy.
And this is Paul, also known as EastX Twitch.
Ha ha! I'm back and better than ever, baby.
You're back? I don't remember you leaving.
You don't remember? I sacrificed myself for the good of the team.
What team? It's just me and you on this podcast.
When I cast Magante and saved everybody. But I didn't die. The slime time amulet given to me by my beloved saved me.
Are you delusional again? That never happened. And even if it did, why didn't you tell me you didn't die? And what were you doing this whole time?
Important stuff. I couldn't tell you because, reasons. Oh, I know. In secret, I had to develop my new skill. Sneaky step, stealthy step, pendy step. Super important. I couldn't reveal myself during that time.
Is that what you're calling it? You always did love shoplifting. Well, I think it should be called Sneaky Step, Stealthy Step, Paul Step instead. And there's something off about you. Your power. It's far, far too weak.
Oh no, I've been found out.
I'm on to you, all right. But we have more important duties at hand, like welcoming our audience to Alltrades DQ Media Abbey, a Slime Time podcast spinoff where we review various Dragon Quest media, including manga and anime.
We are currently reviewing the 2020 Dragon Quest, the Adventure of Dai anime, and the Dragon Quest X tie-in manga, Rooming with a Gamer Gal. We'll start with Dai first, so let's strash it up.
Yes, and we'll start with episode 72, The Last Attack. In this episode, Dai and Hadlar face off for one final battle. Dai powers up a Zapple spell by using his sword's recently enhanced scabbard. Hadlar expects the young hero to attack with a Giga Break, so the villain charges in with his Ultra Combustion Slash. However, Dai surprises him by combining his Giga Break and the Avan Slash to create a Giga Strash attack. This overpowers and defeats Hadlar. As poor Hadlar's body starts to break down, he offers Dai a parting handshake. What a sport. Before this can happen though, one of Kilvern's traps appears beneath the two warriors, the Nine of Diamonds trap. To stop the fiery trap from consuming Dai and Hadlar, Pop rushes in and uses a crackle spell to hold the flames at bay. Yunkel tries to break the trap open from the outside with his Grand Cross technique, but it has no effect. Everyone realizes the best way to break the trap is to defeat Kilvern, but he's already retreated, so they can't do that. Mom desperately tries to fight her way through the trap as well. Her attacks have no effect either. Will Dai, Hadlar, and Pop survive the flames?
Probably not. Show over. Sorry.
The end.
Yeah, but in this episode, if you like dramatic poses and ability names, this is the episode for you. First half of this episode goes a little overboard with the posing and the splashes of ability names on the screen. I mean, some of it's fun, like when they show the stills of Hadlar and Dai that look like watercolor prints. I really like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the big flashes of the ability names on the screen are, they're somewhat common in anime and manga in general, but they're a little bit jarring here, especially since the show hadn't done it previously. In the end, it's still entertaining to see Dai combine his father's and Avan's abilities into his biggest attack yet. Seeing Hadlar express how he's changed internally is also interesting. He has really grown as a character, becoming more interested in fighting honorably. The contrast between Mam and Leona's reactions to the seemingly hopeless predicament their teammates face is interesting to see. On the surface, Leona seems calm to the point that Mam calls her out on it. But I love Leona's strong response to that and how they show that she is actually really stressed out and she's actually drawing blood from clenching her fist too tightly.
Yeah, and let that be a lesson to Mom. Stop staring at people's chests and look at their hands instead.
My hands are down here.
Exactly. This episode has some strong artwork, Even when the show uses CG at one point to pan around Dai and Hadlar here, it actually looks good and not distracting like in earlier episodes. You mentioned Hadlar's character growth, and it really is impressive how much the show has changed our perception of the character by this point. I actually felt sorry for Hadlar when he lost, which is reinforced by Mom feeling the same way. Hadlar even puts it into words that reaching his lowest point after being defeated by Dai really kick-started his new new life. It's good that he recognizes and appreciates his character growth like we do. I'm not crazy about Kilvern's trap-catching Dai, Hadlar, and Pop. However, it feels like wheel spinning since the heroes will obviously get out of the trap. Until then, though, we get to enjoy an episode and a half of them being trapped and the others complaining about it. Oh boy. Whenever Kilvern does anything, I always wish that Baran had completely destroyed him when he had the chance, instead of letting the little one-eyed guy resurrect him.
It'll be interesting to see your reactions to more of his stuff in the future. I know you're getting sick of him, but
Heck yeah.
But next is episode 73, The Hope in the Flame. Returning to Kilvern's Nine of Diamonds trap, Pop is running out of stamina to keep up his defense of the fire trap. Thanks to some encouragement from Hadlar, though, Pop finds more magic strength within himself to keep going. It's also at this point that he devises a plan to use a Madroa spell to create an opening in the trap, allowing Dai to cast a zoom spell and carry them both out. However, Pop finds that if he uses one of his hands to cast the frizz part of Madroa, he can't hold back the trap with one hand alone. Hadlar surprises Dai and Pop by using what little strength he has to stand up and prop up the trap with his own magic power, freeing Pop to cast his Madroa. Pop successfully makes an opening, and Dai casts Zoom, but Pop fails to grab onto Dai in time. Hadlar's arm and leg both snap as the heroes are trying to get away. This causes Pop to hesitate, thinking he might be able to save Hadlar too. Hadlar then covers Pop up to help protect him from the ensuing flames, but the trap will soon close and burn everything completely. Just when everyone thinks it's too late, golden feathers flying to the ground all around the trap, canceling out his flames and saving Hadlar and Pop. Who is their savior? Why, it's Master Avan, long thought to have died during the Battle of Hadlar way back on Durnline Island. As Avan starts to thank Hadlar, the former Dark Lord lunges forward towards Avan with his one remaining arm's claws outstretched. The attack is not for Avan, though, as Hadlar plunges his claw into an invisible Kilvern, who had appeared for a surprise attack on Avan. Is Kilvern eliminated? How did Avan survive?
You know, you mentioned the feathers earlier. When I first saw those, I thought maybe it had something to do with Ramia, the bird that they sometimes fly around on in Dragon Quest.
Yeah, I understand that.
It would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, early in the episode, Pop is ready to give up until Hadlar guilts him into trying harder. That's sort of a typical shonen thing, but I have to ask why Pop wasn't trying harder in the first place. Come on, Pop, get it together. Well, his green Avan power, or whatever it's called, lights up. What are those called?
Oh, the amulets of Avan, or the symbols of Avan, or the one of those.
Yeah, exactly. The family jewels of Avan.
Yeah, let's go with that. Oh, that's perfect.
Exactly, man. He wanted that thing to light up so much. This time it lights up and it doesn't even really do anything. Well, the plan for escaping the trap is pretty cool, taking good advantage of the tools that Pop and Dai have to work with. Pop cocks it up by suddenly worrying about Hadlar, but it does lead to a memorable exchange between the two former foes. They bare their hearts to each other, and Hadlar actually cries over it. I love how apologetic and moved Hadlar is by Pop's sympathy. He actually prays to the god of humans, leading to one of the show's best lines ever in subtitles, "Save this magnificent man." That's poetry. Avan's return completely surprised me, you know? I didn't believe that the show would let Pop get killed by the fire trap, but I sure didn't predict Avan as the one to save him. When Avan appeared, I thought that Hadlar's prayer had actually been answered by the gods who were sending Avan from heaven, but it seems that a different explanation will be forthcoming.
I'm so glad that didn't get spoiled for you. I was wondering if you had seen that somehow, some way before.
I had not.
And that's great. So I'm glad that was a big surprise. I love that. And I love this episode. Avan returns, and Hadlar has a very heroic end. Like Paul said earlier, it's been fun to see his character evolve over all of these episodes. He starts off as an underhanded Dark Lord who would do anything to win. Slowly, he develops a sense of honor and respect for his opponents. His actions ended up saving them all, and I thought it was fitting that his last action was saving Avan, of all people. On a technical note, I love the look of the fire effects from Kilvern's trap and Pop's Madroa. It's all very pleasing to the eye and probably the best effects I've seen yet for a Madroa. Also, Avan returns. I mean, what a shock was that, huh? His new look is great, and I love what they do with his character going forward. It's also funny to remember that the same English voice actor plays both Avan and Hyunkel, who are now in the same place for this episode. Shout out to Vincent Tong for those wonderful performances, including his narration. I would also be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Brian Drummond for voicing Flazard and Hadlar. Minus a couple of minor characters, his time with the show is basically over at this point, and he did a wonderful job with both villain characters. I was stoked to meet him at an anime convention this past year, as I've mentioned in the past. For this episode, I appreciate that the showrunners really tried to spend as much time they could on this event. You'll notice they cut out the typical commercial break cards and just put a title card over the action instead, and had the end credits play over the last bit of Hadlar's death scene instead of cutting to the usual end credit sequence. So what is next for our heroes? And now, Avan.
Well, in episode 74, Return of the Great Hero, we start with the heroes reflecting on Hadlar's sacrifice, with Pop going so far as to call Hadlar a friend. That's beautiful. The disciples of Avan then turn their attention towards their master, curious as to how he was resurrected from his Megante spell, a sacrifice spell that would normally turn its caster to ash. He explains that the enchanted amulet of Karl, given to him by Queen Flora, took most of the damage of the spell, saving his life. Before Avan can explain why he kept himself hidden this whole time, he senses danger. He makes up an excuse to get the party moving towards the castle and then stays behind himself. The danger he sensed was Kilvern, good old Kilvern, who puts his scythe to Avan's neck, hoping to cut him down. However, Avan has already anticipated this and stuck Kilvern with one of his golden feathers. He activates it, paralyzing half of Kilvern's stupid body. Avan slashes with his sword, but Kilvern breaks free at the last second, taking damage to his mask, at least. He then makes a hasty retreat. Avan, relieved, casts a spell to instantly catch up to the others. He claims to have been keeping up behind them stealthily the whole time, but Hyunkel knows better. The episode ends with Hyunkel calling out Avan for being weak. What does he realize that the others don't?
What I like about what saved Avan is that it is a Dragon Quest concept. In that way, to me, it doesn't feel contrived at all. Starting in the original NES or Famicom Dragon Quest III game, there is an item called a Stone of Life that will protect party members from instant death spells. It actually has gone through so many translations over the years. Like I mentioned, it's called the Stone of Life in the NES Dragon Warrior 3. In the Game Boy Color version, it was translated as Life Stone. In Dragon Quest VII, it was Life Rock. And Resurrock in Dragon Quest IX, before finally getting the name it has now, Diamond, which you can see in Dragon Quest XI. So it's like a diamond kind of type item. And so they put like, they did a little pun like die and bend, like you're mending. Yeah, whatever. So, but anyways, so it was a Dragon Quest concept that existed before the manga started. I would bet my paycheck that the author had that in mind for this scenario, just as they've used the concept of the Zing family of spells before. That's what I like about the show. They use these concepts and they bring them into the plot of the anime. Obviously, the item has been tweaked to fit the narrative here. It would be kind of funny if you could negate the death effect of using Megante in the game somehow. I think it's called Sacrifice in Dragon Quest III, but I forget what it's called in games going after that. That one I didn't research as well. But anyways, the showdown with Kilvern and Avan was great. I think it's pretty clear that there will be more to come between these two because Kilvern was pretty pissed off at Avan at the end of all of that. And it will most likely be a real battle of wits. It's also great to see Avan's goofy personality again. He's a great character, and I'm glad he is finally back. I think this episode does a good job of building some intrigue about what is going on with Avan, and I like that Hyunkel is not oblivious to Avan's shenanigans and calls him out.
That's our suspicious Hyunkel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great to see everyone reunited with Avan, and I'm glad that they roll out that someone evil is impersonating him, because, you never know with these fantasy-type stories. I would have liked it better if Avan had been resurrected than the explanation that he just never died from casting Megante, but there is clearly more information to come on that front, so I shouldn't make judgments too soon. We get a fair quantity of flashbacks in this episode, I noticed. First, with crying Hyunkel, remembering what a tool he was to Avan as a kid, and then with the extended flashback of Avan casting Megante on Hadlar from early in the show. A shorter flashback would have sufficed, but maybe they needed to save a little money by reusing more footage. As far as bringing Avan back goes, it shows some good restraint. I mean, really good restraint that the show kept him dead, or supposedly dead, for almost 70 episodes before bringing him back in episode 73, the last episode. This really gave the characters and us, the audience, a chance to miss him and feel strong emotions when he returned. The part with Avan scaring off Kilvern is cool, but I'm still tired of that darn Kilvern by now. I look forward to his eventual demise. Still, good on Avan for outfoxing the Reaper this time.
You reminded me of something that I almost forgot.
Oh?
You talked about the flashbacks, particularly the ones with Hyunkel. I'm not like 100% sure, but I think the flashback with Hyunkel as a kid when he went to attack Avan was expanded. Like when he he actually talks about like, hey, you killed my father and this is why I have hatred for you. I don't know if they showed him like attacking Avan, but I don't think they showed that dialogue before, but I could be wrong. And that's actually one of the worst pieces of story in the show that I hate the most, which I talked about before, because Avan knows that it was Hadlar that killed his adoptive father, but he never told him. And I thought that was really stupid that he did that. So like Yunkel has this hate brewing in him this whole time, thinking that Avan killed Bartos, but he didn't. He never bothered to tell him, and I don't know why. And I always thought that was silly, but that's like one of the biggest beefs I have with this whole series is that whole sequence of events.
Yeah, that is a contrivance. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention before we go on. We get to see Gome-chan a little bit in these episodes, and Gome-chan has this big number 2 on him. And it'd been a couple weeks since I watched the previous episodes, and it took me a moment to think like, okay, why does Gome-chan have a number 2? And then because it really stands out here. Like I feel like last time when he appeared, when they got up onto Dark King Vern's castle, like I feel like it wasn't very obvious that he was wearing it, maybe. But anyway, I believe it's his Beast King Commandos badge because he's like the second one to join the Beast King Commandos.
That is correct. Yes, he keeps that on with pride.
Well, there you have it.
Yep. So good on those exciting Dai episodes. So next we will go with our manga that we are reviewing now, Rooming with a Gamer Gal. First we have Server 3. How about some snacks? In this chapter, Goro and Takumi get to know each other better by discussing their motivations for picking their characters. Takumi is still upset over having a Gaelu-style roommate, but realizes he shouldn't necessarily judge Goro by her appearance. They share some tea, and Takumi is shocked to see what Goro looks like without all of her Gaelu accessories.
Early in this chapter 3, we get to see some of the artist's weird anatomy that I mentioned when we discussed the first 2 chapters in our last podcast episode. One of the first few panels shows Goro sitting on a beanbag with a Wii U Pro controller in her hands. Her forearm and hands are bigger and thicker than her legs. Manga artists all have their own art styles, and it's not uncommon for artists like those at Clamp, for instance, to draw women with impossibly long legs. This particular thing with the disproportionate arms and hands, however, is not so common. I'll probably complain about it now and then, but I'll try to get used to it. A lot of the artwork, such as the human characters' faces and the Dragon Quest X characters like Powder and Goro's Knight, actually look really nice. So it's not like this person is a bad artist. He just has a weird art style.
Before you go on, it reminded me of I was binging Gundam Seed because I wanted to watch the movie that just came out. Oh. And they have this one episode where they show these random people on a beach, and there's this one girl that's sitting on the beach, and they kind of pan the camera from right to left. You see her head and then her body and then her legs. And then I guess when they drew her legs, they forgot to finish it because it looks like a noodle, like a bendy noodle. It's awful.
Oh, no.
It's one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in an anime. It was so poorly drawn. I thought it was hilarious.
That's crazy. Sometimes mistakes like that slip into an anime because they have these impossibly rushed production schedules.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure there is some rushing with manga too, but when you see the same thing happening over and over, that's just the way the artist draws.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess there's a story to discuss too. Well, this issue deals with character creation and selection and how other players treat you differently in the game depending on what your character looks like. I like seeing Takumi and the mysterious Goro starting to be friendly by offering each other drinks and snacks.
Yes, the mysterious Goro. Another chapter or server of not knowing Goro's real name. Will we ever know her name? I don't know. Also, another great chapter cover. I love on the chapter cover, like as we discussed before, all the chapter covers are showing Takumi as he's discovering Dragon Quest X, and it shows like a scene from him in the game discovering new things about it. And in this cover, it has a heel slime, and it has a mustache and a top hat, and I love it. So stylish, so debonair. It's great. In the beginning of this chapter, the line about elementary school reasoning, they both think to themselves about why the other picked the character that they did for the game was really funny. I enjoyed that. I also love some of the Dragon Quest details in this chapter, such as Takumi's slime figures on his shelf. He's got like a slime and a heel slime. And then they also use some slime mugs for the tea. It's a nice chapter of both characters getting to know each other, except Goro's real name, and seeing Takumi starting to realize that Goro is not as bad as he assumed. That she's more akin to her personality in the game as opposed to the Gailu girls who tormented him in the past.
Then we have Server 4, the Fun Coliseum. In this chapter, Takumi and Goro are playing Dragon Quest X, surprisingly. Takumi sees the Goros in the Coliseum, the in-game location where players fight against each other. Goro vents her frustrations about playing with random people, and Takumi points out that several of their guild members also like the Coliseum. Takumi admits that he tried a practice Coliseum match once, but wasn't really into it, something I can empathize with. Goro then invites Takumi into her room to watch her play so that he can get a better idea of how the mode works. She secretly hopes he might join her team as a spellcaster in the future. However, Takumi is content to just watch Goro fight with the other members of their guild, Heaven Slime. This frustrates Goro at first, but she enjoys Takumi's company, so she invites him to watch anytime she enters the Coliseum.
Yes, your little sarcastic quip about the Coliseum I thought was hilarious because that gave me flashbacks to the arena battles in Dragon Quest Tact.
Heck yeah.
Oh, the days of those especially real-time arena. Oh my god. Anyways, you can definitely see them bond more over the game in real life as Takumi becomes a fan of watching Goro fight in the Coliseum. Some fun references in here too. When Goro fights a really tough team, one of the fighters belongs to a guild called Chapters of the Chosen. This is the subtitle to Dragon Quest IV, as the game is split into chapters about the chosen heroes. Another member on the team is named Kirito, a high-level gladiator part of a guild named Legendary. I would bet money that the author was probably referencing Sword Art Online's Kirito here. The descriptions for the various people in the guild are so fun. I love them. Like, I love the line about this one character who says, this one guy claims he's not sweaty, but is totally sweaty. Or the description of someone who claims to be a casual in the game, but is totally not. It's interesting that Takumi muses that a spectator mode for the Coliseum would be fun. And I wonder if the game ever did that. I mean, I went into the den where we have some people that play Dragon Quest X, and I said, like, hey, did you know if they ever put a spectator mode in the Coliseum? Because this was like 6 or 7 years ago. But everybody in there was like, yeah, we don't play Coliseum here. I was like, oh, okay. Never mind.
Thanks for nothing.
Yeah, they're more like Takumi, just kind of palling around, I guess, or maybe just sticking to adventuring. Who knows? But anyways, you can tell that both of these people are completely different gamers, Goro and Takumi. Takumi likes to take it easy in this world and likes to pal around and whatnot. And Goro likes to do a lot of fighting and adventuring. Another fun server to read.
Yeah, that's a good observation about their different play styles. I mean, like, you have this comic here where they're stretching a friendship / romance across a lot of chapters. Like, they're stretching it very slowly because every chapter is kind of centered around a game concept or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just like how well thought out it is. Like, it's so well thought out that it really reflects how people really do play MMOs differently, you know?
Oh,
that's fun. So that's fun to see. Something I noticed in these last two chapters that I hadn't realized before is that when these two people are playing Dragon Quest X in the house together, they're in their individual bedrooms. They talk out loud to each other, which initially had me thinking that they were in the same room. But nope, it seems that the house just has super thin walls through which people can comfortably converse. That might make it hard to have privacy someday, you know? Might be a little weird. The comic does communicate when the characters are typing to other players, though, and you can see their controllers and keyboards and everything. So it really does a fine job of showing what it's like to play the game from a, like a practical standpoint. It's just too bad that Takumi doesn't want to play in the Coliseum with Goro, but they look like they're having a really nice time when he hangs out and watches her play in her room.
Agreed. So fun couple of servers there. In our related news for today, they made an announcement that there will be a Leona figure coming out in the future. I was actually quite shocked about this. I thought our time for Dai figures had come and gone, but I was wrong.
The character is being made by Spice Seed, who I am told makes extremely high-end figures.
Yes, they plan to put out a Mistvern figure in August, a Killvern figure in October, and a Dark King Vern, hey Vern, figure sometime in 2025. No date for the Leona figure yet.
The price tag on those? $54,000. 50,780 yen for Miss Vern. Kill Vern and Dark King Vern clock in at 65,780 yen. That's a bunch of yen. And it's to be determined on Leona since she doesn't have a lot of concrete info yet. The yen to USD conversion rate varies, but as of this recording, these figures cost about 350 to 420 US dollars.
Even with as generous as the conversion is for us right now with USD to yen, wow, that is expensive. But I wouldn't mind having a nice Leona figure, but I don't think I can spend that much money on one. However, in my recent trip to Japan, I did find a nice Leona plastic stand figure with a little Gome-chan. It was a lucky find in a Saruguya store in Nagoya when my wife and I were there to see Ghibli Park. Saruguya is a large used goods chain in Japan. It's a great place to get secondhand video game and anime goods.
You're lucky you got to go to those places. A little Garuda told me that they also have an English website for importing.
Indeed. I highly recommend checking their website out. They constantly do free shipping promotions, and that's big for trying to import something because shipping for importing can be very expensive sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So that makes importing Dragon Quest merchandise a lot more accessible to everyone. It's how I was able to find some great items, like the little two-sided pop man pillow that was an exclusive for a pop-up Dai event that they had in the past. You'll never know what you'll find, and they have great prices.
You sure do love your sexy body pillows. And with that, we wrap up this episode of Alltrades DQ Media Abbey. If you want to prepare for our next episode, be sure to watch episodes 75 to 77 of Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai and read chapters 5 and 6 of Rooming with the Gamer Gal. You can watch the Dai episodes subtitled on Crunchyroll or dubbed on Hulu. And Rooming with the Gamer Gal is available through the Manga Up app.
We're a non-profit podcast. We won't magante any of your hard-earned gold when we can offer you quality content for free. But if you do have some extra gold that's just completely burning a hole in your wallet, pouch, bottomless bag, treasure chest, or grandfather's gigantic Asian-style spare house that has no soundproofing whatsoever, and you would like to donate anything to a website that's been supporting Dragon Quest fans for over 25 years, stop by the Dragon's Den by clicking the link in the show notes. There are several ways to support the Den, including the affiliate links that don't cost you anything extra when making other Dragon Quest purchases.
That sounds like a nice house. And we even have a Slime Time t-shirt that was designed by our resident artist, Dwayne. See the link for it in the show notes.
As part of the Slime Time Extended Universe, or STU, you can direct comments or questions for the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at DQ Slime Time.
And you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/EastXTwitch. Come watch me play a variety of games every Saturday, kids.
Join in tons of Dragon Quest discussion at the Dragon's Den forums or Discord and the Dragon Questers Facebook group.
We'd like to thank everyone that made this podcast possible, including Pendy, Woodus, the Dragon's Den, and the many poor game developer souls that were recently laid off by Microsoft. May they find new lives at other game studios soon.
I hope so too. Please like, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast.
We'll catch you later, everybody. Don't hate, appreciate.
Time to zoom on out of here.
This is slime time! General Flazzard here! Beware my five-finger flares!